Carter Realty Group.
And I'm Randall Moffett. I'm also with Carter Realty Group, and this is...
Welcome to Contracts, Conversations, and Cocktails.
Wonderful. So, today, we're having a Tequila Sunrise. And I'm opening tequila now.
Sounds delicious.
Exactly. And so, normally, the ingredients go probably 2 parts tequila, 1 part orange juice, 1 part grenadine. But if you're a real estate agent and it's been a rough day, it's okay to adjust this part.
I'm supposed to be pouring.
I
don't make drinks, so Randy's supposed to be teaching me while explaining you how to make a drink.
It's been an okay day, so maybe 2.5 parts.
Like that. That's about half. That's perfect.
That's a little light for me, but no, it's okay. It's
got you.
Wow.
Just a little bit more.
Orange juice, simply the best. It should give us a
little bit
more? Maybe a little bit more. You did.
That's good. Okay, that's good. I did put like a tequila.
Boom, and just a drop of the grenadine.
Muscle.
Yeah, you. Now to get out away from you. Oh, perfect.
Yeah, not a lot. Okay, I'm gonna do a little extra orange juice.
There you go. Boom. Are you gonna shake it?
Yep. No, you shake it. You go for it.
I gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Drink responsibly and tip your bartenders. Cash App in the bio. I'm kidding. Cash App.
He's kidding.
But we do accept referrals. If you have one that's looking to invest or buy or sell, don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Sarah and
Randy.
Ooh, that looks so good.
So refreshing.
Pour it so nice.
More for me.
Doesn't that look so good?
All right.
All right, we'll let you know.
Welcome.
Cheers. Oh, that's
well, we're back with Sarah and Randall, and we have a new topic for you. Today's topic is
talking about your neighbors. So when you're talking about renting or flipping a home, anything of that nature with the investment, how to go about a neighborhood that you're coming into. So we're going to talk about that.
Right. So I'm just going to jump in and mash it up. So both of us are homeowners and both of us are investors.
We are.
So from a homeowner standpoint, which would you prefer? Would you prefer your neighbor on either side or behind you let you know that, hey, I'm new to the neighborhood, my name's Billy Joe Hale or whatever, and I'm going to be buying this house and turning into a rental, or just buying the house and doing this little 2-week rehab and get you a rental in there?
It's a silent landlord.
Which one would you prefer?
So I have to say, actually from experience, moving into my home, moving day, my neighbor came over with a 6-pack of beer and said, before he gave it to us, he said, renters or buyers? And I said, buyers? And he was like, all right, cheers. He said, cheers. So I say that to start the story off with, it's really a preference. I feel like for me, I'm pretty sure, 99% sure my neighbors are tenants, and it doesn't bother me. They keep to themselves. They do have a lot of, it's busy, but it doesn't really bother me because they keep to themselves. However, it also would be nice to have a courtesy just to know who the landlord is. If there is a problem, I could have that relationship to let the landlord know.
Or you see the police pull up, you know.
Yeah. So I have to say, honestly, like, I really think it's a preference, but either way, it would be kind of nice as a homeowner to know. That way, more so for the landlord to keep them up to date with what's going on in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
What about you?
So, for me, I don't have the luxury of having to choose whether I like it or not. My HOA doesn't allow rentals.
Oh, that's right.
Some homeowners, HOA is Homeowners Association, and sometimes they have restrictions. Some of those restrictions can be as plain as, well, we're not even going to say plain. Some of them can be as restrictive as you have to plant red flowers in front of your house, or you have to have a blue mailbox, or you can't make these type of renovations, or your house has to be painted this color. Mine doesn't have any of those restrictions. They only say that you cannot bring a tenant over here. So
what happens if you do bring it to? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no.
If you watch our other video, you'll see that we talked a little bit about HOAs.
We did.
So this is a good one.
So
what is your HOA punishment? I would say consequence.
So the HOA, which I don't like them, but they don't do nothing. But They it's $500 a day. So that means if you rent out your property and your neighbor contacts the HOA and tells them that you have a rental in there, it's $500 a day until you get the tenant out of your property.
You know, I actually want to jump on that. That's insane.
Wow.
Luckily for my condo, I was able to rent it out, but we had our neighbor knock on our door the minute we bought the place. It gets better.
Wow.
One of the board members of the HOA walked into my condo while my patio door was open. Came in and introduced herself. Wanted to know what we were doing, what the plan was. I was like, okay, so some people will just literally walk into your house.
Maybe we have to add HOA to letting them know as well as the neighbors, because that
it's crazy.
It seems a bit intrusive. But
crazy. Oh yeah, it was very intrusive.
You need them to your ability to be able to rent. So
yeah, you have to be nice to your board members. So again, HOA, moving on from HOA.
Right.
But so, yeah, that's crazy.
When I did move in though, my neighbors, it was sweet and sour. So I moved in, and one of my buddies was helping me move my stuff, of course, and he parked in front of the garage, and I let the garage down for 2 minutes. Now we have shared driveway, if you will.
Okay.
Somebody put like 7 sticky notes on his car and was like, "This is not a parking lot." And we were in the house for 10 minutes, but it turned out to be okay, I guess, because later on down the road, one of my neighbors popped up with some like blueberry muffins or something.
Made friends?
Yeah, made friends. And the other one, he brought me chocolates. That's weird.
So now you're best friends with your neighbors.
I wouldn't say best. Wait, this would be air. Absolutely. I am best friends with my neighbors. We're like this. That's my buddy.
So I guess we all have our stories.
We do.
So we're going to talk a little bit about different perspectives
Yep.
of being the neighbor with a tenant next to us,
Yep.
and kind of what that could look like. And you as a landlord,
right,
making the decision for yourself, because we don't believe that there's any right or wrong answer.
It's up to you, and I'm sure you've had good experiences going both ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, did you notify your neighbors that you were a landlord in your townhouse? In your condo.
I was going to try to keep it private to give my tenants privacy, but the neighbors were really nosy, retired, so they're kind of just home, hanging out, and they just, they wanted to know. It's a small community, so they wanted to know
what are you guys doing down there?
So yes, I did share with my neighbors. We were renting it out. Now, did I really want to? I wasn't really sure. I was going to probably keep it more to myself, because I just feel that
so you were kind of
it wasn't my
thrust
place.
Into it.
Yeah, because I don't like to lie. So I tell the truth, and sometimes I don't know that's always the good
telling
thing.
The truth is always good.
Is always a good thing. Moving along. So Randy, with your rental properties, how is it? Because you have multi-units.
I do.
So tell me a little bit, tell them a little bit about what it looks like, because it's different when you have a single family home, right?
Yes.
And you have a rental next door. They're not as disruptive, I would say. And maybe they're perfect, who knows? But with a multi-unit, you are wall to wall. So how does that go?
So I feel like, I think in my heart that if you know that you're living next to a multi-family house, you know that you're going to run into a tenant at some point. And one of the duplexes that I actually was able to sell recently, it was on a street full of duplexes, and the neighbors on both sides were actually owner occupants.
Okay.
We discussed that in our previous video as well.
We did.
They were owner occupants, had owned their buildings for 25, 30 years. One was a retired nurse. The other one was just a regular guy, investor. And so they were aware. And I actually looked up, because my neighbors are nosy, of course. If you live somewhere 30 years.
Especially when it's tight.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They knew the status of the property, and then once they started to see you coming more and more and more, they're like, okay, so you're the owner, I guess. And
what are you doing?
It was, in our introduction, it was pretty cool. And one nuance that I've learned, and we talk about buying houses that need work in certain areas. We talked about last video as well. Mm-hmm. And if you are the buyer of one of these houses that have been an eyesore for the neighborhood, they don't like you.
Oh.
Even though they understand you're the one that's going to be fixing this problem, for some reason it's just an odd attachment. It's like, you're the reason this neighborhood is like this because of that house. But you're like, I just bought it yesterday, so it's not me. And I've been in a few situations where it takes a moment to like massage that idea out of their head because they've been sitting there and their property has been probably tanking in value in some way, form, or fashion because when the appraiser comes out, the appraiser, that's the guy who tells the bank how much the property is worth so they can lend you the amount of money that you need to buy the property. Cash app below. No,
He's joking.
No, but so in those instances, so those properties like that have a tendency to hold the values where they are or keep them down a little bit. So I would think that in those instances, those people would like us, but they don't. Not until you fix it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I think something kind of cool that we're figuring out here too through this conversation is that when you have a single family home, how does it affect the neighborhood versus if you're in a multi-unit or a condo or a townhome where it's a little bit more tight-knit or smaller or maybe even an older neighborhood?
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. Where everybody on the entire street is homeowners and they've been homeowners for 20, 30, or 40 years or it's a family house. They are adamant about who they let into their neighborhood and they will approach you. Like they kind of did you, I guess, when they were like, what are you doing?
But I also, for another example, I had a property, it was a flipped, actually. She was purchasing to flip the home. And the neighbors were concerned of what she was going to do with the house. It was near tear down. Like, it needed a lot of love.
Right.
And luckily, we were able to tell them she's fixing it, she's loving it, and all that.
You got to massage it. That's what I mean. You got to kind of massage it.
It's very interesting. So to kind of narrow it down, when we talk about the pros and cons, we'll dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, we're diving.
I would say, I want to hear what you think, but I would say a pro to not letting your neighbor know that you have a tenant there is one, they may never know if you have great tenants, and so they don't have that little stigma. And two, it gives your tenants a little bit of privacy, so there's not that stigma against them as people.
So they can treat them, so they don't have the latitude to treat them as tenants.
What do you think, though?
That's a good question. Hold on, let me
brew on that.
What was this? Tequila Sunrise. Let me sunrise it for a second.
Yeah, what do you think?
I drink responsibly, people. Make sure you drink your water. Drink some water.
Like 2 sips, man.
Exactly. In moderation. But you know what? I understand what you're saying. And to a certain extent, I do agree. What I'll say is I've been fortunate to have a nosy neighbor. Okay. And what I mean by that is once it was established, our relationship, me and the neighbor's relationship was established, she began to be like a lookout for my property. You know what I mean? So if something popped up or if somebody was jiggling some locks or going somewhere they shouldn't be, and she actually, when I bought the duplex that I had, it had squatters in it. So I had to get them out of there. Yeah, I had to get them out of there. And
check your properties.
Check your properties. Because squatters do have rights and you got to follow the rules. So finally got them out of there. And it was one day where the guy came back. And it was like 5:30 in the morning. And he was trying to walk the trash cans to the curb or something to get in. And she was standing out of the house and took video and took photographs.
Wow, good
she
neighbor.
called me. Yeah, perfect neighbor. And I was able to alert the authorities. The authorities contacted the guy, told him don't ever come back. So I no longer had that issue. But like I said, at the same time, the same neighbor, I had a survey because I told you I sold it. A survey is when somebody comes out. I don't know, a surveyor comes out and he figures out where the lines of the lot that you actually are purchasing or selling, where they lie. So a lot of times you'll hear about line disputes or what property is somebody.
It does happen more often than you would think, but it's an easy. Usually, it's an easy fix.
Well, and it's easy because every parcel of land has already been pre-plotted by the county. So when you buy a house, you're actually buying the structure and you're buying the land under the structure. And the land is already outlined. It's called a plat of map survey or a plat of survey or something like that. Yep. And so we got the surveyor out there, a couple $100 to pay him, and she was upset because where she thought her property line stopped, it was like 4 feet back. And so she called me irate Randall, he's on my property, and I've never had these kind of disputes with the previous owner, and I didn't know what to say. I mean, he's serving. He's just doing what he's supposed to do. And it turns out I was right. She was wrong. So her property line
Customer's always right doesn't work in this situation. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, when it comes to real estate, it's very legal specific.
Clean cut dry oftentimes. And so we, she even threatened to call the police. But this is the same one that saved me something by being able to take the pictures of the guys who were breaking. So it's
keep their relationship strong.
It's on and off because it's just like any other relationship. If you begin to empower them, they begin to use that power.
Oh, of course.
You see what I mean?
You do have to. You know what? To wrap that up too, you do have to set a boundary. So when I talk about the pros and cons, I'm thinking of my single family home. And I'm thinking of my condo.
Right.
So for me, as a homeowner in a single family home, it would be nice to know if someone's renting in my neighborhood, but I'm okay if I don't know. But if I'm in a condo, it is kind of nice to know. And I do, as a landlord, obviously you guys know, I connect with my neighbor because she kind of,
fell in your lap.
And I was like, hey, neighbor, we're going to be best friends.
Yeah.
Because that's just how I am. But we became friends. I got her number. We hang out a little bit. But
your best buds.
I tried.
When's your birthday?
Oh man.
You don't know. You're not.
I don't know. But I know she's been at the property for 21 years.
Oh,
okay,
wow.
So I know how long she's been there. But now I know that
upgrade.
My tenants are amazing. Let me just say that. It's great to have great tenants.
I envy you.
But I have her number. We text. We stay in touch. So if there's ever an issue with the condo, it's a lot more tight-knit community. If in a single-family home, you don't see a lot on the outside unless there's crazy things happening.
Maybe some type of subdivision or something like that.
But even then, I just feel like it's a little quieter, And I might be wrong, but from my experience, my neighbors kind of keep to themselves, and I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
But with a condo, you're next to each other.
Yeah.
Luckily, we have concrete walls.
Yeah. So necessary.
But it's just, I just think of the tight-knit community versus a single-family home, unless it's an older neighborhood where everyone's been there a while.
Yeah.
You just, I guess, to wrap it up, you really just have to think about who is in the neighborhood and how is it going to affect them. That's probably the biggest thing I could think of. What are your thoughts?
I
don't have to agree. What do you think?
I know that's what I am thinking. You know what? We're sunrising. There's that hydration station. No, I can see the benefits and I can see the holdbacks.
Same.
And I will probably lean into what the situation allows. If you have a neighbor that is inquisitive, feed it. You see what I'm saying?
That's
feed
a great
it.
way to say it. That's
but
a great way
if they aren't inquisitive and they're keeping to themselves, hey, keep a mutual respect and keep it going.
Well said.
The primary thing why, and even me as a homeowner, the only way that you know if someone is a tenant or not, it kind of is how they treat the property.
That's true.
Pride of ownership is what they call it. I mean, if you're a homeowner, you're cutting your grass every 10 to 14 days. There's no trash on the street or anything like that because this is what you pay for. Exactly.
I want to look good to my neighbors.
Exactly. And you want to keep the value up and you want to keep your neighborhood pristine and prodigious. But when a tenant comes in there, they're just here for a monthly situation. So the grass may not even be a concern of theirs.
Yeah. Or their budget doesn't afford it.
Or leaving trash outside. Hey, it's not my fault. It's the landlord's fault. So that is probably the biggest thing. And if you've gotten well at being able to cipher through your tenants as best as you can, because there's no way to it's even certain situations will turn a good tenant into a bad tenant. Not that they're a bad person, but the situation may just they just don't have the money or something like that, know.
Absolutely.
And but you have to do that vetting process very well, not only for your property, but again for your neighbors as well, and for your property value. Because if you don't get someone who will treat your property appropriately, you're going to lose money. And that's whether that's when they move out, you have to do another $4,000 paint and carpet and do everything. And that eats up all the money that you just made from rental income.
So I'm going to cut in because Randy said two really great things that I want to touch on. I'm glad you brought it up. You did. You talked about how rentals can affect the value of the neighborhood. And you mentioned, I lost it, but we'll come back to it. But let's talk about how the value could affect your neighborhood. So, if I'm about to go into foreclosure, I'm going to let you answer this. We're going to let you answer this. Right. If I'm about to go into foreclosure as a homeowner, should I let it ride into foreclosure and just let the bank take it? Or should I rent it out? Even though maybe my neighbors don't like me renting it out. What would be the benefit, the cons?
So if you have the ability to rent it out to stop you from going into foreclosure, well, first, before we go to rent it out, I'll say consult a realtor first, because if you have equity in your property, you can't go into foreclosure. That means the property value is more than what you owe. So worst case scenario, you sell the property, it satisfies the mortgage, and you walk away with the proceeds or the whatever is over.
Landlord, that's great.
There you go. Or if you do find a way to modify it or get in a position where you can't, they would allow you the time to get caught up. Of course, rent it out. Yeah. Maybe you're locked in at a lower interest rate, 3 or 4%, and you got a real decent mortgage in comparison to what you could rent it for.
Oh, absolutely.
That's that makes sense. And you do that for a year. Sometimes that could change your situation. But still, get a good tenant, because you don't want to make
the property value
$7,000 in payback, and then have to, in order for you to move back in, you got to spend $10,000 to unwash what they, So you have that option.
I love that. And to jump on that too, we've talked about this before. Remember, when you have a foreclosed property in a neighborhood versus a property that's being rented, the rental actually is going to keep the value of the neighborhood over the foreclosed property.
Absolutely.
I will tell you from experience, if you go into a neighborhood and they have boards on their windows, no one is going to want to buy in the neighborhood.
As an investor, I love it.
Well, sure. You're gonna. As an investor, you're gonna build the value up.
I have attempted to purchase whole neighborhoods, meaning streets and streets of boarded up. And I mean, granted, that was it was a big. It was a real, but you can see it. I mean, if there's a street that has 12 houses, and of those 12 houses, 9 of them are boarded up. That is, for the right investor, for the right person who has the right amount of money, that is potential for you to set because if you do one and you sell it for $100,000, that means the rest of them in that condition will be worth.
Well,
so that could.
And to add to that, if you do buy
don't do that. It takes a lot of money.
I never had a tangent here, but if you bought a whole street, you'd be fixing them at the same time, so it'd be easier to sell them. There's not boards. But just if you're wondering why that matters. People can't really see, typically. People cannot see tenants.
No.
They can see boarded windows.
Yes.
Or foreclosure signs.
Yes.
So that's probably why you find a lot more value in having a rental over.
If I'm representing you as your real estate agent and we go to buy a house and the house next door or 2 doors down or 3 doors or across the street has boards on it, we're subtracting $10,000 off the asking price. Easy.
Because now you're dealing with a neighborhood where you might have squatters.
Yes.
Or teenagers.
Yes.
Who are gonna
or high police activity or it's situations where it's not conducive for you to be able to walk down the street safely, or a tenant or even children. You know what I mean? So those are things, but if a property is occupied and is being maintained, and even at a basic standard level, meaning there's no crime or anything like that, it will still, like you said, hold that value versus something being boarded up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think that touches on a lot.
Yeah.
So I think the last thing to really just touch on, which talking about rentals in your community.
Money.
Money. Is how do you assess a good tenant? What are your thoughts?
So there are a lot of.
Because you've had quite a few tenants.
Yeah. Some of them adopted, some of them hand selected. Right.
We only got a few minutes. Before you dive in, you've assessed a few good tenants, you would say. Based on paper, they had good scores, good numbers, but something went wrong. How do you balance that? How do you handle that?
It's if this was easy, everybody would do it.
Oh,
So
I say that all the time.
there is going to be some days that they're going to really test how committed you are. And again, because money is money, we are all operating off of an economic system, you know. So for some people have worked their entire lives and been able to maintain themselves. Some people lose their jobs. Some people, you know, life happens.
It does.
And so even if you pick the best tenant, means every month I go collect rent, she has the check and warm cookies for me. You know what I mean? She could be the perfect, but if her situation changes financially,
you're stuck in the spot.
the cookies go away, and so do the rental checks go away. You know, but so all you can really do is vet them, make sure they're working. The people that they use as far as references, call them.
Yeah.
Ask them, speak to them, talk to their employer, ask them the tough questions. Are they late to work? Do they do this? How is it fair to assume that they will have continued employment with you? You know,
So
ask those tough questions. Yeah, do your homework.
Like a job interview, it's the same thing. You're just applying. Someone's applying for your property.
Absolutely.
So those are great things to keep out for as a landlord too. One thing to keep in mind when you run into that situation is everyone's different, right? I'm more of a forgiving landlord. Like, we'll work this out. Like, if they're communicating, we're gonna figure it out. But if they're not communicating, that's a different situation. He knows. But we don't have time to get into it. But anyway, at the end of the day, just depending on your tenant and your relationship, the communication, definitely try to work with them and figure out what's the best move for you as a landlord.
Yes.
And how to go about that situation.
Yes. And
there's no one right answer to that.
No, it's
There's
not.
so many situations.
And because depending on where you are or where you're buying or anything like that, and like I said, bringing it back to the original point, when it comes to the neighbor, be observant of the surroundings. If you see your neighbors looking and observing to see what you're doing, it's better just to go ahead and introduce yourself. Don't let them in. They're not an equal partner with you or anything. They're not your security system or anything. If you get those services or amenities, be thankful. Yes, but you know, hey, my name's Randall. I just bought this house. I'm going to be renting it out of the neighborhood. Do you know of anybody? Because not only that, your neighbor could be the one that finds a tenant. It could be his daughter or his son or something like that who wants to, and they're going to pay you. You know what I mean?
At the end of the day, just assess your neighborhood.
Yes.
What kind of neighbors do you have?
Yes.
And that wraps up our neighborhood talk for if you should rent in your neighborhood or not and how to go about those neighbors. Those nosy neighbors or not.
And I've already sunrised it, so now my sun is setting. But
I'll wrap mine up.
Thank you guys.
Have a great day.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.